Hello and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris.
And I'm Sharaad Kuttan.
Welcome to Consider This, the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Parliament met today for 43 minutes and featured only the opening address of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. This is the first time that the House convened since the fall of the Pakatan Harapan government. No media outlets were allowed to cover the proceedings from inside the Dewan Rakyat, save for official media, Bernama and RTM. However, members of the media had gathered outside the heavily policed Parliament entrance as early as 8 a.m.
Melissa, no, this is fascinating because the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, His Majesty, in his speech, hailed the contributions and sacrifices of frontliners, and we often define that, in terms of the people on the medical frontline. But the media is very important in the fight against COVID in terms of the communication strategy, but also in terms of unearthing truths, and the truths are not just here in Malaysia but around the world. And the media are the frontliners, not just in the fight against this virus, but also in the fight to maintain democracy in this country. Exactly. So it's quite fascinating that the media was barred, in fact, from having direct access to our lawmakers.
Yeah, I mean, because Parliament is not just about reporting what happens during the proceedings, but it's also about those interviews that happen at the lobby, the doorstep interviews that happen with the members of Parliament. I believe one member of the media, one reporter, had even fainted due to the hot weather. And even with the media coverage ban inside the Dewan Rakyat, I mean, the least that the Parliament staff could have done was anticipated that, most of the coverage would have to be done from outside the premises, and maybe arranged for at least, tents or chairs or something for the journalists who are essentially doing their jobs. Restricting media access only pushes the journalists to the sidelines. It doesn't actually stop the reporting.
Yeah, and there's also this interesting, argument that was put out that the media could use the official feeds to do their reporting. That just puts, again, the idea is to putting the lawmakers at one remove from the journalists who could ask difficult questions. Of course, Parliament itself wasn't allowed to ask difficult questions today. There was, in fact, no debate, no questioning, no scrutiny. All the roles that we expect Parliament to play in a democracy.
Right. The seating arrangement in Dewan Rakyat garnered a lot of interest today. All MPs were separated with a one-seat gap to observe safe distancing. However, 2 seats away from the Prime Minister, Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin, sat Datuk Sri Azmin Ali. So while the seat reserved for the Deputy Prime Minister remained empty, Azmin was positioned as the most senior minister on the government bench in Dewan Rakyat today.
Yeah, there's a lot of, reading the tea leaves, I think that's going on, Melissa, and especially, I think over the last 2 months, speculation about whether this government has a majority, what is the nature of that majority, who's really important as in terms of the cornerstones of this government, its legitimacy and its strength in Parliament. And so today, with the Azmin Ali, observations about Azmin Ali is the question of whether this particular positioning would be acceptable to the partners within the Perikatan Nasional, and because again the rumor mills and the speculation just churns around this.
Yeah, speculation was rife that the seating arrangement for the Dewan Rakyat showed that Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin commands a majority support of the House, so I believe he has a majority of 2 at this point in time. There was some confusion as to where the Parti Sarawak Bersatu MP from Sri Aman Amasir Kujat was sitting, but he's clarified to say that he was wrongly assigned his seat. So that means Muhyiddin enjoys a majority of 2, but whether this seating arrangement is sufficient proof of a majority, it remains a question that needs to be answered.
Yeah, Melissa, this is just kind of reading again the tea leaves, and we can't be certain that the loyalties of those individuals on either side of the aisle are fixed, and that's partly been our problem, I guess. But yes, and so the speculation is right that in fact this government enjoys a very slim majority of 2.
All right. We also note that the PKR President, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, as well as all of his party MPs were noticeably absent from a joint press conference. The press conference today was attended by Bersatu, Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad from Bersatu, Syafiq Afdal from Warisan, as well as Lim Guan Eng from DAP. And the reason given by PKR Comms was that Anwar Ibrahim had a prior engagement and that he could not attend the event. Yeah,
Mat Sabu from Amanah was also there. Very interesting yes. Because, again, with the Pakatan Harapan government and its, short, life of about 2 years, was talk about the kind of signals that are given about unhappiness or the jostling that was going on in government. So, again, the absence of PKR at this an important show of solidarity has had, heads turning. All
right, we're going to take a quick break. After this, we'll speak to Umno's Asyraf, Wajdi, Dusuki. So stay tuned to consider this.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
kalau boleh
ya. Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia di Wuhan.
Sosioekonomi Bumiputera ini tidak boleh dipisahkan, tidak boleh dikurangkan ataupun ditinggal.
Pasal apa syarikat terugi? Kira sukses. Sukses is not necessary pada saya. Kalau kita nak menolong sesuatu.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
kalau boleh
ya. Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia di Wuhan.
Sosioekonomi Bumiputera ini tidak boleh dipisahkan, tidak boleh dikurangkan ataupun ditinggal.
Pasal apa syarikat terugi? Kira sukses. Sukses is not necessary pada saya. Kalau kita nak menolong sesuatu.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
kalau boleh.
You're watching Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris, with me, Sharaad Kuttan. Today's half-day parliamentary sitting might have satisfied the Constitution, but has political turmoil truly been avoided? Joining us on the line to discuss this further, we have Umno Youth Chief, Dr. Asyraf Wajdi Dusuki. Good evening, Asyraf. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Are you satisfied that all the country got at this critical time was a 43-minute parliamentary session?
No, I think the most important thing, we have seen that we have managed to fulfill the requirement of Constitution to hold a parliamentary session, even though it's only one day, due to what the government has actually explained, want to avoid any potential, the COVID-19 pandemic. But the most important thing, I think we should think positively that we have another session in July that we can debate whatever that we feel the thoughts of the people that need to be brought up in the parliament. But most importantly, I think we have to take note seriously of what the Malaysian King has actually, Yang di-Pertuan Agong has actually warned us against resorting to hostility and slander. And in fact, he has, Yang di-Pertuan Agong has actually given us a very important message that we should, the politician, especially the honourable members of Dewan Rakyat, should always display maturity in politics and do not revert the country to a situation of political turmoil.
Ashraf, I do want to ask you this, though.
Problems and difficult future.
Right. One of the concerns, Ashraf, is that the reason for the shortening of the parliamentary session, not just from the from the normal sitting to 1 day, but in fact shortening the 1 day, not even having the supplementary bills tabled today for some sort of discussion or first reading, was a fear of Dr. Mahathir's vote of no confidence. Do you agree that that was one of the prime reasons why the parliamentary sitting of a day was shortened to just half a day, to 43 minutes?
No, it's okay. Let us all focus on the problem at hand. The country is facing the pandemic, COVID-19, and we have to address this issue first.
But Asyraf, around the world, many countries are facing this. Democracies are facing the same problem. They have managed to organize parliamentary sittings for a long enough period, including debating and tabling legislation that's specifically to deal with the COVID-19 problem.
Agreed. You have the point that we still have the second parliament session, the meeting which is scheduled to sit for 25 days in July, if I'm not mistaken, July 13 to August 27. So we still have time. And I think the session today is just to fulfill the constitutional requirement. I think that is the first the priority that needs to be addressed. And of course, meanwhile, we still have the second parliament session in July, and during that session, I think the opposition can always table the motion of no confidence towards against the Prime Minister.
Right. Coming back to this sitting, Asyraf, what majority do you believe Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin enjoys in Parliament?
I think as we have witnessed in the morning, it's very clear now that the government has only a slim majority. I think about 114, just exceeding additional two member of parliament.
So this majority of two, Asyraf, does the margin of this majority matter to the Prime Minister's legitimacy? Does it inhibit his ability to govern?
Of course. That's why I think the message by the King is very important, because at the moment we have to avoid any potential political turmoil, because with the current state of condition in which the government is facing today, especially we can see the government is not strong. With the slim majority, of course, at any time the government can actually be challenged by the opposition, and we can face another situation of political turmoil. But the most important thing, we have to think about rakyat, and we have to think the priority at hand. The most important thing is for the people to be assured that their interests are put priorities, especially in facing this pandemic.
But this is the Asyraf. So does this priority? Sorry, can I interrupt you? This priority, does it apply to the states as well? We just seen the fall of Kedah, and there's a promise of maybe more states falling to the Perikatan Nasional. Does this principle of avoiding turmoil only apply at the federal level, or does it also apply at the state level?
No, it goes to, it is not only at the federal level, it also applies to at the state level. That's why the most important thing, we cannot give a wrong signal to the market, especially when we are going to do whatever it takes to manage and recover the economy after the COVID-19, post-COVID-19. Especially, we want to ensure the trust and confidence of the foreign investors, the local investors, domestic investors towards our market. And in order to do that, we need to ensure the politics, the situation, the stability of our country in terms of political stability must be rest assured. So these are the things which I think we need to put priority at the moment.
I just want to come back to something that happened over the weekend. Perikatan Nasional signed an MOU over the weekend. UMNO, as part of Barisan Nasional, as well as 5 other parties, pledged to, I quote, ensure a good, inclusive and world-class system of governance. Can you shed some light as to what you mean by this?
Yeah, the most important thing, we need to understand that this government was formed due to the fact that we were facing with political turmoil. And for UMNO in particular, we took a rather a bold step, try to avoid our own interest by supporting Tan Sri Muhyiddin, who is coming from it is not coming from Umno. It comes from PPBM, Bersatu. And we supported them. We supported him in order to ensure that the country will not continue to face the political turmoil, which affects the whole nation, and especially the rakyat. And based on that, we have to understand that this government is not a strong and solid government. In order to make sure the stability of this government continue, especially in facing various forms of challenges, in particular COVID-19, we need to form, a concrete coalition, especially among the members of parliament who have already agreed to support Tan Sri Muhyiddin as the Prime Minister.
Right. Asyraf, one of the things that the Perikatan Nasional doesn't seem to have, as its predecessor, was a manifesto, right? And this was admitted by some of the Perikatan
Nasional.
Yeah. So the question is Perikatan Nasional, is part of the Perikatan Nasional platform a fight against corruption? Are you against? And
no. Let us hold on for a minute. Okay. Let us talk about the fundamental. The fundamental of Perikatan Nasional is that it is actually a coalition of members of parliament representing various parties that work together to make sure the government remains stable, and we support the Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin to form this government in order for us to continue the governing of the people. So in order to ensure that, we need to form a kind of concrete understanding among the parties who are involved in forming this government. Because, as I mentioned, Perikatan Nasional it is not like Pakatan Harapan, which is a registered party. It is not like Barisan Nasional, a registered party. But it is just a loose coalition.
What does that mean to work together for the government to remain stable? What does that mean, actually?
Because the most important thing now, the rakyat cannot be, at the risk of this political turmoil that could and may happen for a second time. Because as we have observed and we have witnessed, the government is only having a slim majority. So in order to make sure to instill the trust and confidence, not only to the people, but also to the outsiders, to the investors, to make sure that the economy can run smoothly after the coronavirus pandemic. We need to make sure that the government, the political stability is there. So that is actually the reason why we need to form a kind of understanding. And we have agreed to come up with MOU so that we have a very clear mandate by all the political parties to support this government until the next GE15. And in doing so, we need to make sure that all aspects, the principles of governance, the principles that actually put priority of the interest of rakyat need to be adhered and need to be upheld.
Asyraf, thank you so much for speaking with us tonight and for answering our questions. We really appreciate your time. After this, we're going to take a quick break. After this, we'll hear from Liew Tong of DAP. So stay tuned to consider this.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
kalau boleh lah.
Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia di Wuhan.
Sosial ekonomi Bumi Putera ini tidak boleh dipisahkan, tidak boleh dikurangkan ataupun ditinggal.
Pasal apa syarikat terugi? Kriteria sukses. Sukses is not necessary pada saya. Kalau kita nak menolong sesuatu.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
Kalau boleh lah.
Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia di Wuhan.
Sosioekonomi Bumi Putera ini tidak boleh dipisahkan, tidak boleh dikurangkan ataupun ditinggalkan.
Pasal apa syarikat terugi kriteria sukses? The success is not necessary pada saya lah. Kalau kita nak menolong sesuatu.
Novel coronavirus yang seolah-olah masih tiada vaksin.
Elakkan pergi ke epicenter
Kalau boleh lah.
Kes-kes ni dapat dikesan dan dikuarantin di hospital ataupun di rumah.
Terdapat 86 rakyat Malaysia.
Thank you for staying with Sharaad and I on Consider This. Liew Tong is a Dewan Negara Senator and the Political Education Director for DAP. Tong, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
Can we first address the absence of PKR at the post-Parliament Pakatan Harapan press conference earlier today? Now, is this evidence of the same fractious dynamics that plagued Pakatan Harapan during its 2 years in government?
I think we don't read too much into the presence or non-presence of Dr. Sri Anwar. But I think it's very important that Pakatan holds together whatever MPs that we have together with Tun Dr. Mahathir as well as Warisan so that we can eventually form the government. We are very close and it is very important to hold together so that we can reclaim the government.
Tong, from today's proceedings, people are reading into the seating arrangement, the majority that the Prime Minister is suggested to enjoy. I mean, what do you understand by the seating arrangement and what do you understand that majority to be?
Basically, after the press statement of Sri Aman MP, Muhyiddin only has 113 MPs on his side. And that is based on the seating arrangement. But that has not been tested on the parliamentary floor. See, the reason why Parliament has to call for a proper meeting is that it will allow the MPs to test the majority of the government. Now, the government is now worried and not prepared even to test it and even to allow for any procedural vote. You see, when you call Parliament,
would you agree, Tong, that it looks like the Prime Minister does in fact have a majority, slim or otherwise, it is a majority? Question is, what is the point of a motion of no confidence if he does in fact have a majority?
Because it has not been tested. The moment it is put to a vote, he may not have the majority.
I mean,
so it has to be tested.
What would happen? What would have to happen for people to cross over to the Pakatan Harapan side? I mean, is it just moral suasion, as expressed by Tun Dr. Mahathir, that is going to change the dynamics, to change the numbers?
Well, people are not happy with the arrangement. Many MPs did not know that they will be signed up by their leaders into this makeshift coalition without a purpose. The only purpose of this coalition is that it is anti-DAP and it is put together because it wants to deny Anwar Ibrahim a chance to be Prime Minister. So the point is that some of them are not happy and they don't think this is something that they actually sign up for. So to go to the parliamentary floor is to give them a chance to say that we actually did not sign up for this government. Do you expect that to happen in July? Well, actually, any parliamentary day, any vote is an opportunity to test the majority of the government. And the government can only delay parliament as long as until budget. I mean, I'm not sure whether the government will call the July sitting because any parliamentary vote will have a danger, will pose a danger to the government, in which the government may not have the majority, and it will have to resign from government. It will have to allow the king to appoint a new prime minister, and therefore I think they will drag as long as possible. So I'm not confident that they will call a July sitting. But however long they want to drag, they cannot drag beyond budget 2021. Because if they drag beyond budget 2021, the government will have no money to spend in the next year.
Okay, Chin Tong, before we move further, I'd like to come back to something you said a little bit earlier. You said that right now the focus, not to read too much into Anwar Ibrahim's absence at the press conference earlier today. You said right now the role of the opposition is just to hold together. I'm wondering then, what should we be reading into, if not this? What evidence do we have that the fractious dynamics that in the Pakatan Harapan coalition has been worked out?
I think eventually, we will have to come to a consensus. What would be the best way for the nation? I think the best way for the nation is to bring together a coalition and that coalition was actually given the mandates by the people to run the government. So eventually, Pakatan Harapan, together with Tun Mahathir's faction as well as Barisan, will have to come together to form a solid bloc in order to reclaim government.
I mean, Chin Tong, it's very nice to talk about the restoration of the people's mandate. It sounds like it was stolen from Pakatan Harapan. But isn't it true that Pakatan Harapan squandered the people's mandate, that in fact you lost that mandate?
I think we knew that this was difficult because this was a coalition of former rivals between Mahathir and Anwar, and also it was not just an opportunity to form a new government. It is not a usual change of government like those happen in UK or in Australia, but it was actually a transition from an authoritarian government. So that transition is difficult. I don't think we have enough time to build democratic institutions to consolidate democracy. So because of that and because of the internal dynamics of a coalition put together in order to fight kleptocracy, we must admit that this was a difficult coalition to manage, and it was also difficult because it was a new democracy with media being free, but ownership is still controlled by friends of the former regime. So we were managing something very difficult. We didn't do very well, but that is something that I think we'll do better after this.
Okay, well, given the limitations, Chin Tong, of this parliamentary sitting, how exactly will Pakatan Harapan plan to be a vigilant and a vocal opposition?
I think Pakatan and Barisan, as well as Dr. Mahathir's faction of Bersatu, will have to prepare for governing. You will have to tell the people that we have better ideas and we have better experience. We are more stable. When we come back, we'll be more stable because we have a common purpose. This is a coalition at least governed by similar ideas. I mean, this is a coalition that at least subscribes to the idea that corruption is not something that we agree to, and corruption is something that we want to eradicate. So
but Chin Tong, wasn't that exactly what was the run-up to the last general election? The eradication of corruption, the fight against Najib Razak. I mean, if that didn't in itself, keep the coalition together, why should that change now?
Well, because at that time there were 4 prime ministerial candidates. Tan Sri Muhyiddin wanted to be prime minister, Azmin wanted to be prime minister, and within Bersatu there were dynamics between Tan Sri Muhyiddin and Tun Dr. Mahathir. Within PKR, there were dynamics between Asrin Ali and Anwar, and there were factionalism, and those factions came together to create what they call the Sheraton move or Sheraton coup. So I think at least now it is clear that you don't have those dynamics happen now.
Okay, Chin Tong, the last half minute that we have, the legal challenge to this this parliamentary sitting, what do you make of that? Do you think it's going to work?
I think eventually, if there is a clear number, then change will happen.
Well, all right then. Thank you so much for speaking with us tonight, Chin Tong. That is all the time we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris. With me, Sharaad Kuttan, signing off for this evening. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and good night.